go deep inside, we are pretty external people that just base in our we are just based in our senses, in which what we can see. But if you go deep inside yourself, then you can connect with yourself, understand which is the true goal of why you are here, or trying to understand it. If you go inside, then you realize that this is just temporary, that this is in a lower level as opposed to something higher. And that something higher is the thing that is the north that is going to guide you.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Break Free, where we're interviewing entrepreneurs that are really making a difference in the companies they are leading by example and also by their leadership style. Today we have with us Omar Mendoza. Welcome to the show, Omar.
Thank you, David. It's a pleasure to be here.
Omar, for the audience, can you give me your full name? Where do you live and what do you do for a living?
Yes, I'm Omar Mendoza Rizaola. I live in Mexico City, and I'm a SGA Global CEO. SGA Global is part of a very large insurance group called Talanx.
Insurance. There is all kinds of different insurance. So can you be a bit more specific on that?
Yes, of course. SGA Global is focused on what we call commercial lines of business. Property and casualty is perhaps for people outside the insurance industry. It doesn't look, sounds familiar, but our main focus are companies. We insure NatCat risk as earthquake, windstorm, fire, and then liability, marine, cargo transportation, and so on. So our main focus are the industries, while other kind of companies, which are more focused on retail, the insurance they usually sell are cars, homeowners, and so on. So this division is focused on that, but Talanx Group has different divisions to attend different segments.
So you're mostly business to business, right, Omar?
Yeah, correct. Our division is more B2B.
And tell me, how long have you had this position as the CEO of it's the Mexican division, right?
Yes, it's the Mexican division. In March next year, I'm going to turn 3 years working for this company.
Wow, so it hasn't been that long.
No, it hasn't been that long. I have a lot of experience in the insurance industry, around 24 years working for insurance in different positions, different companies. The last one was, prior to this one, was head of marine in Brazil. Then I came back to Mexico, and then started the pandemic, and I spent a couple of years working from home. Then I was moving to Colombia, Bogota, as head of vice president for P&C business in the previous company. But then it came across SGA Global with this very interesting project to grow their muscle here in Mexico.
So are you from Mexico?
Yes, I'm from Mexico.
So it must have been nice to finally jump into an opportunity that gets you back home, right?
Yeah, right. And also in the personal side, because my son was born in Brazil. So we say, well, it's time to go back to Mexico to be in touch with the family, So it was a perfect timing because, as I said, we just came back to Mexico in January, end of January. And after 1 month, the pandemic started. So we were very lucky to stay during the pandemic in our home country.
Yeah, it was crazy. I think it's shaking a lot of people's values and beliefs and made you realize that you have to be grateful and you have to give thanks to the Lord for every day that is normal, because it changes in an instant.
Correct, yes. And well, working for the insurance industry, we see that very often. The scenarios change in an instant.
So tell me, Omar, let's go back to the beginning of your career, because it takes, like you said, it takes decades in order to reach the top, and most people don't do it. So did you go to university? What did you do when you were right after high school?
Yes, well, I actually studied mechanical engineer, and I was graduated. and working in a family business focused on fabricating belt conveyors. Belt conveyors are machines that transport merchandise in the industries and for mining. But I started to feel a little bit bored about just doing calculations, and it was very repetitive without people interaction or different things to do. So I saw an advertisement here in Mexico, which was a pretty old company. Now that company doesn't exist. It was Comercial America, and they were looking for engineers to join the insurance industry. And I was a little bit reluctant because, usually people who do not work in the insurance field, we have a perception that if you didn't succeed in anything else, then you go to insurance. It's like and you believe that you are going to be with the portfolio, knocking the doors and trying to sell policies and so on. So I was a little bit reluctant, but when they explained me that I will spend 3 months studying insurance and they will pay me more than I was than my previous salary, I decided to join that company. And it opened my mind, it blew my mind, because the leaders of the different lines of business and areas of the insurance, of that insurance company, provided us different information about their areas of expertise. So I realized that insurance is way broader. It is a pretty important piece of the economy. People are willing to take risks because they feel protected when they buy an insurance. So I realized that this is a pretty important part of the economy, a field that was growing steadily in Mexico. Many international companies coming to Mexico looking for different profile of people, and I saw the opportunity. So I started as what we call a marine underwriter, which is the decision taker about which kind of risk that you're going to put the company at stake, and you decide the amounts in which you're going to put the capital of the company at stake, how much you are going to price this risk transfer, terms and conditions, exclusions, and so on. So it's pretty technical, but I was always focused on the industry insurance as opposed to retail business.
That's beautiful. So you were hired for your engineering expertise to manage risk and calculate the policies. I think in Canada they are called actuaries. So you were like an actuary.
Yes. No, indeed, actuaries, they are part of their careers. They oversee insurance, but an actuary can work in any kind of statistics or models or mathematical models and so on, not only in insurance. But I will say that because the insurance field in Mexico is not so well communicated to young people, young professionals, people usually believe that only the actuaries make sense to work in this insurance. And actually, we use actuaries to calculate trends and so on, but it's part of the process. Me, at that time, as an underwriter, I took the information prepared by the actuaries to take decisions. They work with models to try to understand the exposures, but at the end of the day, the call is from the decision maker, who takes into the equation other variables like the commercial aspect, the strategy of the company, and so on.
Okay, so you were the underwriter. That makes it very clear.
Yeah, right? Yeah, correct.
So did you start liking it? I mean, like leaving a career, because you're an engineer and then you become an underwriter. It's a very different career change.
Yes,
did you hesitate it a little bit, or what was in your mind?
I said, I'm going to study, then let's see what happens. But then I realized that insurance it's a pretty complex business. So it's very challenging. And it involves, you have to read a lot. You have to take certifications outside Mexico. Then you have to use mathematics to have some sound technical decisions. And also you have to have people skills, because this business is about people and trust and the relationship that you can build in the industry. So it involves a lot. And on top of that, insurance industries throughout the world are very heavily regulated. So you also have to comply with very tough local regulations. Then you never know which is your final result unless until after 5 or 10 years you realize what was the result of your decision, because the numbers move, things happen. Under local regulation in Mexico, the insurers have up to 2 years to report their claims after having been aware of that claim happened, So it could take a long, different processes to service that kind of claims can take years. For example, on a vessel, there's something that we call general average, and if that has to apply, it could take like 5 years or more to discuss who's gonna pay what, So it's pretty complex, and I realized that right away. So you never get bored. It's a very dynamic business, and also we are involved in any kind of industry whatsoever, paper, mining, cars, whatever. All the industries require insurance, so you never get bored. So I said this is something that I want to do on a professional level. That's why I decided to certificate in US as CPCU, AMIM, ARE, different certifications that are not available in our market in Mexico. The closest education that you can have are some specialized courses given by certain universities. I participated jointly with a friend to actually give some lessons to young people to understand better the insurance industry and try to work here as well.
This podcast is brought to you by ISU Corp. Are you having trouble with your software projects? Is there a project that's taking too long or a technology you can't handle? We can help. We are ISU Corp, experts in custom software since 2005. With almost 20 years of experience, we can solve any technical problem from new businesses to satellite software. We've done it all. Let us turn your ideas into reality. Learn more about how we can help by visiting us at www.isucorp.ca. Your solution starts here.
How long did you stay as an underwriter?
Well, people say once you are on the underwriter, you still on the underwriter until you retire, because of the mindset that you require to do the underwriting. But I will say that I stopped underwriting when I moved to Brazil back in 2016, because the operation was massive. It required other kind of focus, not the specifically technical side, but it helps to you. But it was more focused on leadership, on designing strategies to have a positive results, to grow, and so on. So I decided to complement my training, doing a marketing master degree, then studying an MBA, trying, to mix the different worlds in order to understand and have a different set of skills, because that kind of position require other kind of skills different from the underwriting.
So, Omar, I do this podcast, number one, to show the different leadership styles to other leaders that come here, but also to shine the light on younger people that want to be where you are right now, eventually. And I look at a beautiful pattern, and the pattern is you never stop learning, and you have to set yourself goals, and then you have to go after what you want, and you have to pay the rite of passage, which is for you, for example, going back and learn again, going back to university, doing an MBA, doing a master's in marketing. Like, you were setting up your life in such a way that when the opportunity comes, you were ready for it. How many people complain and they say, oh, I wish I had that job, but they just cross their arms and they do the same thing day in, day out, hoping to have something different happen in their life? That's insanity, isn't it?
Yes, totally agree. I think that we need to be prepared for to take advantage of the opportunities, and actually to see the opportunities and to be considered. So I was very focused on this. It's also is part of my personality, because there are people who are entrepreneurs, who they go in a quite different path not quite different, but in a different focus, let's say. But one thing that I will say that is quite important is always to keeping a life balance, because it's, in my opinion, it's not about like I'm just going to focus on growing, and the only important thing is business and making, succeed in your career and so on. In my opinion, success is not about having a position or having certain economic status or so on, but it's about achieving a balance in which you feel comfortable, quote unquote, because at least in my case, I always try to continue doing different things and always trying to challenge myself, but on a healthy way, not in a way in which I will burn out or later regrets. I have seen a lot of people, very smart, successful people on the business side, that when you look at the family side or the health side, they are not so successful, and it's something that I wouldn't regret. I don't want to regret, so I always try to strive to keep in this balance.
And where did you learn that? Because that's brilliant. And I wish I knew that, because I was that guy that got burnt out. I was the guy that got the heart attack trying to grow. I was the guy that neglected my family in exchange of growing businesses. And which you're right. It's something that time, I can never get that time back. And, one of the reasons why I'm a man of faith now is because Jesus Christ had to rescue me from hell, because I was literally in hell trying to grow without realizing that I had lost my wife, my kids, the things that mattered to me the most. And everything was restored to me after I realized I needed to achieve a balance. Exactly what you said, but I had to go through the fire. How do you learn that?
Well, I will say that it was part of the support that my wife provided to me. She all of a sudden have some interesting. She was interested in studying psychology or trying to figure out different things, not just working. She used to work for a bottling company, very large and so on, with a very tiresome rhythm and so on. But then she tried to refocus her trend, and I said, "Oops, that looks interesting." So I started studying different courses, training, whatever about psychology, different teachers I got from Spain, from Mexico. Whenever I have any chance, I try to understand that psychology part of the human being. In my opinion, there's you have to look higher and understand that there's something higher than you, and you have to respect that, and you have to be aware that time is limited on this, with this body, let's say, and you have to take advantage. You have to enjoy the human experience, but also never forget that you are part of something greater than you, and that, I think, refocus you. And that's why I decided to start studying family constellations. I actually study with Jodorowsky, whatever I could challenge myself, trying to understand my behavior, my trends, and my family relations and so on. It helped me a lot to realize that life is deeper than just doing business or working for a company.
Good stuff. Like for me, when I was rescued, I just went to and started reading the Bible. What a concept for a Christian to read his Bible, right? And little did I know that it was a manual to how to live life. All the things that you're talking about are there, and all you got to do is read and understand and apply them. Thank God it wasn't too late for me. My wife I have the best relationship with her that I ever had, 35 years married. I have 3 grown kids, all successful. My businesses are thriving. But I was hanging by a thread 2 years ago. 2 years ago.
Wow.
So it was recent, And after building all this success that looked from the outside, I realized that my inside was bankrupt. Exactly what you were saying, right? Like if you're successful in business or in your career, but you're not successful in your home, you know what the Bible says? Why would it matter if you gain the whole world and you lose your soul?
Yeah,
And that's what we're
correct.
talking
I
about,
agree.
right?
Yeah. Put it in other words, an uncle told me once that, well, you strive and focus on doing money, and then you lose money to try to recover your health, you know? So it was like a kind of a cycle that I didn't want to have, you know? So,
How did you manage to find that balance though? Because you were a full-time employee, you were working, you were growing in your career, but then you also went back to school. Like, how did you do that?
well, I'm always challenging myself. I challenge myself in a sense in how can I be more efficient? How can I stop losing time, for example, in commuting or in things that do not add value for me? I don't know, sitting and watching Netflix. Okay, good idea perhaps to relax a little bit, but if you take like 5 hours, then you lose the time, the opportunity to invest your time in your son, in your wife, in reading books, in studying, in going to run, whatever. My wife said, and well, I agree with her that I'm very, I have a lot of discipline. So I try to manage my week according to my goals. Let's say we can focus on doing more exercise and enjoying family and so on. From Monday to Friday, I also do exercise, but on a level degree and more focus on the company issues and so on. But I will say that it's trying trying to find out or try to lose the less time aligned with my goals that I can, you know.
So intelligent and smart. We all have the same amount of hours in the day. It's just how you invest the hours. And you know, like one of my guests said, you know, if you wake up 1 hour earlier every day, you are far away from your competition at the end of the year, right? You have so many more days, you have more weeks ahead. Just because 1 more hour that you could be sleeping, you are actually got up, and especially if nobody's working yet, you do so much that nobody can reach you, right?
Yes, and I will say that it's also challenging the status quo. Working for the insurance industry is a very old industry. And when I start working for Comercial America, people start gossiping because I used to go sharp in the afternoon, you know, at the time I should leave, but I was pretty disciplined to go in outside at that time. This guy is like, he's just thinking about I comply with the hours and so on. And no, it was because I invested the time in other things. And I told them I like to start very early in the morning because I don't spend my time in traffic jams, because I arrive to the office and instead of I'm going to the coffee and so on, I'm looking at my email because I'm alone, you know. And when people start to arrive, then I make the contact that we require to make the relationship. But half of my work has been already done. And that discipline is okay. You know, you are never going to see me unless it's an emergency in the working at night. But if you want, I can attend a call at 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. And people usually say, no, don't worry. Let's have the call at 10 o'clock tomorrow, you know?
Yeah, so people want what we have, but they're not willing to do what it takes to get to where we are, isn't it?
Yeah, correct. And also, it's I will say that the things align because at least in the industry, they know if you want to reach Omar, reach it in the morning. So the first thing they do is contacting me, and they decide to contact other people on the industry at 7 at night, 8, 9, and so on. You know, you also, in my opinion, have to be very aware about how do you work. For example, for me, the most important time which I'm the most efficient is in the morning. After lunch, then I start to decrease my performance. I know that, but there are certain people that their performance increases at night, so it depends on the people.
Yeah, I discovered that early in my career, and it helped me a lot. I was that guy that was doing the best at night, because I was in the software industry. I was doing development work and required a lot of concentration, and I was a dead person at 8 a.m. But by 2-3 p.m., my performance started to peak all the way, all the way down. And actually, that's why I developed these bad habits, because when I was the most productive was when I should be with my kids and my wife having dinner. So now I also realize that you could actually change those patterns if you're willing to work on yourself, right?
Yeah, correct.
Omar, tell me, how did the opportunity came to go to Brazil? Did they hire you as a leader already, right? And it was a different company or different company?
It was in the previous company I worked for, but it was pretty funny. I used to go to Brazil to carry out underwriting audits. It's like a good practice that usually underwriters do, because if you have eyes outside your country looking at what you are doing, then you can have insights that you are losing in the day-to-day business. So I went once per year to Brazil. Pretty soon I realized that some of them in that team at that time didn't speak very well Spanish. People tend to believe that Spanish and Portuguese, they are pretty similar. Yes, they are similar when you ask for tap water or to go to the hotel, to a taxi driver and so on. But other than that, it are quite different languages, So I realized that. Then I realized that some of them have difficulties speaking English. So I said, well, I'm going to start studying Portuguese, because I want to make sure that the community, we do not have a language barrier between the teams, And I think because of that, it was one of the reasons that after a while, when they required me to go to Brazil, that company decided to buy a very large company in Brazil. And during the integration, they were struggling in integration, struggling with the profits. And they sent it to me as the last option, They tried with Brazilian leaders, but something didn't work. So I was the last option, and I said yes. I talked to my wife, we have the opportunity to go to Brazil. It's going to be not just a professional experience, but also a personal experience. What I know from Brazil is the Portuguese I haven't studied, and when I go for vacation, but other than that, I don't know how's the business environment in reality. So we decided to move to Brazil. The original project was 2 years, but we spent 4 years living in Brazil, and it was a pretty good experience. I realized that bottom line, all the problems that they were facing in Brazil was about that. It was about communication. Wow. It was about that nobody wanted to really make sure that the Brazilians were understanding. And obviously, as many of the Latin American countries, as Mexico as well, the Brazilians didn't want to say, I'm not understanding crystal clear, So everybody was assuming that they were communication, and it was not the reality. And the other thing, in my opinion, and that this is part of the feedback I received from my team after I left Brazil, it was like, Omar, you came to Brazil in a very humble way. I remember that you told us that you came here to learn, to understand, and to see how can you help us. So that changed our mindset in a very fast way, because the leadership in Brazil was very focused on status, hierarchies. Yeah. So when I came and make a disruption about that, and then I went to have lunch with my team, I actually make a Christmas meetings with my team at my home and so on. They were kind of a shock, because it's not pretty common at that time in that industry to happen in Brazil. I can tell if that happened in other industries or other companies, but for them was quite different, and that helped me a lot to enjoy the experience there. It's a great country, great people there.
That's beautiful. So were you able to turn the company around?
Yes, actually, when I came back, I can tell the number, because I am not telling the line of business and so on.
Not necessarily, yeah.
We came back with a $25 million profit. So it was very good, because at the time I moved to Brazil, we were losing money.
That's congratulations.
It was very good news. Thank
And
you.
that's another pattern that I see from the leaders that are in this podcast. All of them are servant leaders, where you are there to facilitate the job of your employees, not to make it harder or not to think that you are the king and you need to be served. You go there to serve. And then the mentality of everybody changes, because where the head goes, the body follows. I'm a scuba diver. When I was learning how to scuba dive, the instructor told me, wherever you move your head towards, that's where your body is going to follow. So up, down, left, right. And it's the same in a business, the same in a country, right? If the leader of the country is corrupt, the entire country will get corrupt eventually. Same with a company, right? If the leader has a servant leadership style, it's going to trickle down to the middle management, lower management, and then before you know, everybody's helping each other, and the culture changes, right?
Yeah, correct. And I totally agree with you. Is my main focus, and that's what I tell to my team is, I'm just another guy in the team with different function. Part of my function is to communicate with people in Germany. Our group is based in Germany. It's part of my functions. Part of my responsibilities is designing jointly with the teams the strategy, our goals, and so on. But I'm not more important than anybody else in the team, because if somebody in the team does not work and delivers what we expect, then all of the team loses. Mm-hmm. I used to play what they call American football, the one with the helmets, and in that kind of games, it's pretty clear. When they see the weak part of the team, they attack, and then you lose. So everybody has to be in tune, doing their work, very coordinated and so on, or as a team, you lose. So that's part of my philosophy here. Also trusting a lot in the people. We are continue working in a hybrid mode, in which we come to the office a couple of years each and every week, and other days we work from home. So people appreciate that, because after the pandemic, some of the industries or companies decided to bring back the employees to the offices.
I really don't understand that, right? I don't understand it, Omar. Personally, my company was remote already. So one of my main businesses, we do software consulting, especially for insurance companies. Actually, we do a lot of insurance work. And when I built the company in 2005, I had the idea that developers and business analysts didn't need to be on site. So I was remote first since 2005. But I did have a head office because I was brought up in the corporate world. So I wanted to be with my people. And it was like that until COVID. But then COVID hit, and I had this corporate office, and two people were showing up every day. One of them was me. After 2 years, 2-3 years, I'm like, what am I doing? Like, wasting all these resources. So I gave the office up last year, 2023, moved my office to my house. Now 100% of the company works remotely. And it saves on time. It helps you with family. I understand that there is this cultural factor where you need to actually socialize with your coworkers. That for sure. But at least for my case, we figured out how to do that remotely, right? And I have people in 9 countries. It's not like we can just jump into a car and get together, but people know each other, and we do town hall meetings. And my point is, like, nowadays with the technology and with the advancements that we have done in sociology, why those people decided to go back to the office? Like, I'm from Guatemala. I go there once in a while, and 99% of the companies are back to the office, and the traffic jams are 2-3 hours every day.
Yeah.
Without me.
Yeah, I remember I used also to go to Guatemala, and in all Latin America, traffic jams is crazy, and you lose a lot of time commuting. But I will say 2 things. First, you have already mentioned it. You also need some space and time to bond with your team, to talk about different things and connect. You go to lunch, when you're working in the aisle, somebody shows up and you discuss something personal on the business side, and then you create the culture. It's easier to create a culture in person as opposed to online. It's not impossible, but it's easier. And the other thing, and I see this as a risk in the medium or long term, are people in some cases are getting lonely, depressed.
Yeah.
There are people who are actually disciplined. You need discipline to work from home. So there are people that perhaps starts pretty late without taking a bath and having a breakfast, and then they can have a depression trends. I think it's one of the most warning signs of the society. More people with mental health problems. So that for me is something that you need to interact. You need to talk to people. I remember that I read a study from Harvard that they were talking about longevity, and the main factor wasn't eating healthy and making exercise or whatever what we usually think. The main factor for longevity was social interaction. That's why some people, when they retire, then they start having problems, family problems, health problems, because they all of a sudden lose the social interaction they used to have. That's why also it is very important to keep the balance, because if all your life is around the work, when you retire or you get fired or you lose your business, then everything collapses.
You are so completely right. Listen, I want to read from you something that was shared to me yesterday that talks about that, and that's worth going to the office for sure. Listen to what it says. This is Psalm 133. It says, "How good and pleasant is when God's people live together in unity. It's like precious oil poured on their heads, running down on their beards, and running down on Aaron's beard, down to the color of his robe. It is as the dew of Hermon were falling on Mount Zion, for the Lord bestows his blessing, even life forevermore." So basically what this psalm is saying is exactly what you just said, which is amazing, because that's one of the things that, one of the blessings that I have doing this podcast is that I come and I learn. I'm the first one that learns, because what you were saying, it's right on. I mean, I don't have that problem because I have, we have a relationship with my wife and my kids. We interact with each other. We make the Zoom gatherings. Tomorrow we're having a town hall meeting that, everybody in every country is going to participate. But you're right. When you lose that social interaction, like, look, what the Bible says is basically that God blesses those who live in unity and harmony. That's what it's saying, right? So it's actually a biblical concept.
Yes, in the buildings, in the building in which our offices are set, there are other companies, and one of the companies is, I think it's gamers or people involved in technology. But you see a lot of young people all the time, earphones, the hoodie, listening to music, without interacting with anybody, So in my opinion, is one of the risks that if we lose the balance between using technology, between having social interaction, it could be something harmful,
It's true, Omar, for sure. I think what you're doing, a hybrid mode, is beautiful because you're halfway, right? You're trying to find a balance, which is kind of like balance is kind of the theme of this podcast, right?
Yeah.
Because on the other hand, I have a friend of mine. He's a senior director at the largest police department in the country, senior technology director. They were working from home during the pandemics, and now they are required to go back to the office every day. It's a 2-hour journey for him to get to the office downtown Toronto. And then he says, "David, I come to my office and I have 5 to 7 Zoom meetings in my office. So we're here and we're not meeting in the conference room. We're actually meeting on a Zoom."
Yeah.
We do that from home.
No, totally. And when you have a hybrid mode, then you can also organize in a better way, because these days I focus on my emails,
right,
and perhaps some conference calls. But these days in which I go to the office is meetings, interaction, discussions, you know, things very basic like I want to go out of vacation, I want to do, yes, pretty
Right.
fast, instead of just doing video conferences for this kind of topics, you know.
It's amazing, Omar. You know, it's been a beautiful pleasure to be with you and getting to learn so much knowledge out of your life experience. But, you know, I do want to respect your time. So I would like to ask you one last question before we finish the podcast.
Yes.
If you had access to a billboard in front of the busiest highway on earth, what would you write on it?
I will say the go deep inside, you know. I will put that because usually, in my opinion, we are pretty external people that just base in our we are just based in our senses, in which what we can see. But if you go deep inside yourself, then you can connect with yourself, understand which is the true goal of why you are here, or trying to understand, it's very complex, and trying to look for something higher, you know. As I said, you have the life experience, which is in, I will say, in the basic level, and you have to live that, in my opinion. There are people who decided, I don't know, a monk that decided to go to the hill. It's good, but I think, in my opinion, in my humble opinion, perhaps he's losing the human experience, the interaction, the, you know, frustration, fear, love, and so on. But on the other hand, if you go inside, then you realize that this is just temporary, that this is in a lower level, that as opposed to something higher. And that something higher is the thing that is the north, that is going to guide you, you know. That's what I can say, you know.
You're right, Omar. I mean, for me, that's what saved me, right? Going deep inside and really look for meaning of life, because that's what happens to you. When you reach success, material success, and you have everything you can ever want and need, and you still feel empty inside, your whole world breaks apart and you have an existential crisis. And a lot of people go through that. When I went through that, I went deep inside, and when I realized is that I am made to find Jesus. And once I find him and get him in my heart through the Holy Spirit, then when I looked inside and I said, I'm here to serve you and to love you and to know that, like you said, we are here for a tiny bit of time, but our souls are eternal. And that higher calling is way more important than your day-to-day life. However, your day-to-day life is also very important, exactly what you said, because it's through your sensories, through your life experiences that you actually, it forces you to go deep inside, I think. And the longer you ignore it, the longer you're gonna suffer.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, correct.
But in the other end, it's the same thing too, right? If you isolate yourself and you just live in a spiritual way, you're missing out. Why did you come to the world then?
Yeah, correct. And I like that kind of balance, you know, challenging myself to be a better professional, but also trying to grow in other aspects, perhaps deeper. But as you say, this scenario of working for a company and so on is very important. It's also part of the game, you know.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. Omar, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your insights. If people like to follow you, are you on LinkedIn?
Yes.
LinkedIn. Wonderful. Thank you so much. Have a beautiful rest of the week, and may the Lord bless you.
Thank you, David, and I really appreciate that you contact me and consider me for this podcast. And I appreciate talking to you, and I also learn a lot.
Wonderful. Have a beautiful rest of the week, Omar.
Same to you. Thank you.
That's all for today's episode of the Break Free Podcast. Head on over to iTunes and subscribe to the show. Starting your own business can be tough, but it doesn't have to be. Visit davidmansilla.com to pick up a copy of the #1 international best-selling book, Breaking Out of Corporate Jail. Expand what you consider to be possible and reach your full potential. And join us on the next episode.